Hello gamers, today I'm going to be taking a look at an Xbox 360 that I picked up for $20. It was listed as $25, but there was a sale on today, so I got it for $20. Here's an Xbox 360 I picked up from the thrift store. Now, it was sold as $20 because it was as is, because the drive stick's very common 360 issue, which I'll eventually get around to fixing later, but that's not the big thing about this console. Oh no. I'll show you what is as I take this apart. So, on the front of the console was this sticker that said, if the AV cable is not securely connected, the power button will show a complete red flashing circle. If there's an incomplete red flashing circle, this is related to an internal hardware problem. Now, you might be wondering what that is referencing. Well, if you don't know anything about Xbox 360 hardware, there were four main fat revisions. There was the Xenon, which I'll show you how to detect them in this video, by the way. There's the Xenon, the very first revision, notorious for the red ring of death and hardware failures along that line. There was a Zephyr, which was a Xenon that had an HDMI port and a few band-aid fixes like different heat sinks. There was the Falcon, which was the first 360 model to have major changes. Basically, the CPU was die shrunk, reducing the amount of heat. This slashed the failure rate a good margin, but that still had the E74 error eventually pop up. Then there was the final version of the 360 FAT, the Jasper. And that was known for being nearly bulletproof, and that is what version of 360 we're taking a look at, is the Jasper. The only things that really go wrong on the Jaspers for the most part are the DVD drives, which are a very common 360 issue, but basically common with every console ever manufactured that has ever used a disk drive. I mean, even my Xbox One is starting to develop some loading issues. It still works and it still installs games, but the disk pickup mechanism's got some issues. There's also the whole, as you can see here, just like many FATs, the doors in the console are starting to break off. I'm just going to grab this, because these springs like to go. But anyhow, let's take a look at the back, because that's where we start to see some issues. So the back of the console is where we start to see a major issue. As you can see, it says GameStop refurbished, void if removed. Now, keep in mind, this means that the console went to GameStop and that they refurbished it. That's a big red flag, and if there's other 360s for sale at where you're at for the same price or for less, get one that works and that hasn't been touched by GameStop. And I'm going to show you why in this video. If you do get one that's been GameStop refurbished, I'll show you what's inside them, and that's why I'm making this video as sort of a public service announcement, sort of. But let's continue. So, as you can see, this is the power connector. There is a split ridge at the top. It's split, which means that basically it means that only Jasper and higher power supplies will work with it. And there's also the ridge in the middle missing that Falcons also have missing. Now, those keys are there because later 360s switched to smaller power supplies. This is a Falcon power supply from the looks of it, because it's missing the two buttons that would hold it in on the Xenon, but it still doesn't have a cut notch on the top, which is keyed there, so only Jasper power supplies can go into Jasper 360s. But they are forwards compatible, so a power supply for Falcons and Xenons is going to work on this as well. So let's take a look at the back. As you can see, there's a manufacture date, 2009-12-10, which was well into the Jasper era. And I'm going to pull the post-it note up some. As you can see, this has this has basically an HDMI port, so this is definitely a Jasper if the power port wasn't enough of a giveaway. So this should be a good working 360. So I'm going to plug this in, and you'll see off the bat one of the things GameStop did to this remanufactured 360, because I'm going to take it apart to clean it out and do all that stuff, so you'll see in a second. So just for a little bit of comparison, this is a Xenon, and it turns out this is a 203 watt Xenon power supply as well, because one, there's nothing in the middle, even though it doesn't have the buttons. This is just a later revision. And this is the Xenon's power connector. As you can see, there's a little notch in the middle, and there's no notch in the top. Of course, you know the other way you know this is a Xenon? When you plug it in, and you fire it up. Because that's what Xenons do. They fucking red ring. And as you can see here, there's no HDMI port whatsoever. There's just an AV port and a USB and Ethernet port. And just so you know, if you ever see a 360 thrift store unit that says on it no cords as is and has no HDMI port, unless you're planning on having some fun heat gunning it and then trying to JTAG it or do something like that, just walk away and find one with an HDMI port, because those are vastly more reliable. And the other reason I'm showing you this is for a little bit of context on why GameStop did these quote-unquote repairs. Because these were very unreliable when new. Alright, I've got this 360 hooked up to this laggy as shit television, and let's turn it on. Now there's one thing you'll notice right off the bat, and actually a few taps in the thrift store actually made this disc tray eject. So I'm gonna pair this controller up. Paired. So as you can see, it's a 360. It's your usual 360. Let's go to console settings and let's go all the way down. As you can see, this hasn't been plugged in a while because the clock's in 2005. And yeah, has a recent dash on it and all. But let's put a game in here. See if this reads discs. Let's pop this in. Let's pop this disc in. I wouldn't pop in a disc you really care about on a dodgy thrift store 360, but fuck it, I'm doing it anyway. So, it's reading it fine. It's revving up like you'd expect for a 360. And you can see, hell yeah. As you can see here, the 360 seems to be working just fine. That's a very good sign. There is one thing though that should be pointed out that you might have already noticed. And you know what that is? It's that on the back of the 360, the fans on this thing are revving non-stop. That normally would mean there's something wrong with the system, because that's what the system normally does to put itself into, you know, panic mode, if you know what I mean, where if it detects something's wrong, or limp home mode, or whatever you want to call it, it puts itself in a special fail-safe mode where it revs the fans up right before it shuts down. And that is what the 360 would be doing. But this is a GameStop Refurb 360, so I'm going to show you, I'm going to take this thing apart and show you exactly what GameStop did to this 360 to make it so noisy, because, you know, right now it would be, you know, it would be a decent 360 for them to go and sell to you for like 60 to 80 bucks in store. I'm going to pick One of them. This is what they'd go and sell you in store for money. This is what 360 they'd sell you for money. So as you can see, it works fine. Graphics look fine and all. Yeah. But let's take this apart and I'll show you what exactly is wrong with it, because you might not see this at first glance. Alright, it's time for some Xbox 360 hardware gore. So, on the bottom plate of the 360 there was already a broken clip. And, where did I put the top of this at? Oh, right there. On the top, there was also some damage here to the whole plastic. Now, I shook the case around and I didn't see anything. And furthermore, the case had some resistance coming apart. Not good. But here is where the amazing repair job done really shines through. Okay, so the first things first, you see these screws? They're fucking loose. They're fucking crooked. They didn't do a good job putting these screws back in place. But it gets better. You notice what's missing right here? These are missing screws. GameStop did the fucking X-clamp fix to a Jasper. Holy fuck. So, basically the whole point behind the X-clamp fix was, it was one of those ghetto quick fixes that popped up during the Xenon era. And what happened was, people did this fix. Because the proper way of doing it, mind you, was to reball the whole chip and improve the cooling system of the console, because it had the same issue the Apple III did, or, well, any modern Apple product for that matter did, where they cram all this shit in a case that can't cool the system off properly. And it overheats and cooks itself. So you've got this right here. You've got this system right here, and the X-clamp fix was this whole fix that was designed to quote-unquote improve the lifespan of the console by replacing the CPU clamps with screws and all, to sort of bend the connections back in place. And of course, as the console would get hot, because it wasn't really a fix, you'd get red ring of death again. Only this time, it was a lot more of a pain in the ass to fix, because instead of actually getting it reballed, they decided to go the quick, yo dude, what up, it's me, Xbox Gamer 420 type fixes, you know, where they take a quick fix, they put their hand behind the vent, and they're like, oh, it's cool, that means it's cool, when in reality, there's heat building up. That kind of fix school we're talking about. The same one that brought you shit like the towel trick. And that is what GameStop did to fix this 360. They did an old Xenon era fix that never quite worked to this perfectly working Jasper in their refurbishment center. Holy shit. Now, if we give this another look real quick, we'll notice that there are no screw holes because they did that mod. So, even if you were to put screws there, you couldn't, because there's nowhere for the screws to go. There's just stuff blocking it. Bravo, GameStop, bravo. Anyhow, it's time for the moment of truth, where we take this 360 apart and see what it looks like. Oh boy. Look, of course, there's dust in it. Lots of filthy dust. I've seen worse 360s, but here's where the fun shit begins. So let's turn around this 360. You'll notice this little wiring nest. Here's what GameStop did. They took the fan connector. They did this weird wiring hodgepodge where how it is the fan goes here, It goes from there to here, and then that taps into the DVD drive for the power source. So I'll take the DVD drive out a little. Let's see if I can do that. Yep, I can. So here's what they did. They did a little wiring mod where it goes into the DVD drive power cable, because this is the DVD drive power cable, and they plug the fan in there to the DVD drive. Now, this mod is notorious for two reasons. The first reason being this mod it basically increases the failure rate of the DVD drive because it's getting less juice. But that's not the other thing this mod does. So if you've got a 360 and it's doing the good old fan revving where it just revs the fans up like crazy to make up for the fact that, let's just say, the CPU thermal paste is bad or something's blocking the fan so heat's building up here. Normally it'll rev the fans up as both a way of getting that heat out and as a way of saying to the user, hey, something's not quite right here. So what does GameStop do? They do another ghetto fix from the Xenon era, the Red Ring era. They do the little 12-volt fan mod, which bumps the fans to max speed. While it's a questionable hack, which sort of has a purpose if you are running a stock console, the thing is like I said, that causes DVD drive issues down the line. And that masks the failure mode of the system, which is the drive, not the drive, the fans turning them up because heat's building up. It masks that failure mode. So right here we've got a quality GameStop repair job. We've got a fan mod, which looks like a custom connector, mind you, because I think the original 360s used yellow power cables. And we've also got the whole X-clamp fix being done. So even though this is a Jasper and even though it doesn't need it. So great job, GameStop. Great fucking job. So this is what you'll find in a GameStop quote-unquote refurbished console. The dust was something the user added, of course, but you'll find quote-unquote repairs that don't need to be done that'll harm your 360 later on down the line. So, there you go. Thanks, GameStop. Anyhow, yeah, this is a little public service announcement. Don't buy a GameStop refurbished 360, no matter how tempting it might seem. So, here's the thing. I've got two Xenon 360s. This one doesn't work. Okay, what the fuck is this? I thought this 360 was gonna fucking red ring. And now it fucking does. It fucking tried to boot. It was fucking weird. It tried to boot. Like it wanted to turn on. But then it didn't. This 360 I'm going to heat gun. I mean, it's showing me that it wants to live. So, it's blowing heat out the back, so. Oh, okay, this was weird. It tried to start up. It displayed like the first second or two of the 360 boot animation. Then it froze up, and now it's doing a 0102. So this Xenon's like, it wants to live, but it can't. This one, I think I might part out. I'll put them aside, and I'll let this one cool down again and see what it does. Till then, though, I'm going to clean this one out, because this one is dusty as hell. So check this out. Pulled the board out, and let's look at the bottom. See what that is? Bolts. They did the bolt mod to this Xbox. That's right. they did the infamous nut and bolt mod that replaces the clamps that should be there normally on the Xbox 360. This was a half-baked cooling mod, and these were common on the Xenons for the reason I mentioned. They were supposed to fix that issue, but instead they caused more problems than they're worth. So let's remove this and try to put clamps back on this 360. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this quality thermal paste job, courtesy of GameStop. And it even says X CPU. And then here's GPU, both Jaspers. Here's the heatsinks. And guess what they were held on with? These fucking things. These fucking washers and these screws. Well, that's what we've got here. Some donor Xenons. And I'm going to pull the heatsinks out of, I think, the $15 one. And I'm going to put them on here. And we're going to fix this thing. So if you ever wondered what a die shrink looked like, here's the Xenon without HDMI. As you can see, the chips are bigger. And here is the newer board. The chips are smaller. They've been die shrunk, especially the GPU. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe off this thermal paste. And then I've also salvaged both the beefier heatsink from the Xenon, and I've salvaged the same GPU heatsink. It's the same exact one as the Jasper. Sadly, I don't have any Falcons I can strip out for the heatsink, or Zephyrs, that is, but, you know, this will already slash some temps. And then I'm going to put my favorite thermal paste in there, Antec Formula 7. Also, it's a good reason to have parts 360s, because you can see these are here. But on the other heatsink, they stripped them out, doing the nut and bolt mod. So I'm going to have to use these along with these X clamps that I got from this parts console. And of course the DVD drive wire I'm going to have to use too. So this will be a fun challenge. Alright, so I've got Xenon CPU heatsink, replacement CPU heatsink, two of these X clamps, and I'm going to put them on this board with some thermal paste now. Antec Formula 7. Alright, so I've got the heatsinks from the Xenon swapped over to the Jasper, and I had to use the component cable because the HDMI one didn't turn on the system for some reason, but it's working, as you can see. So I'm going to play a little bit here, see how this holds. So what I also did to this 360, like you saw, was I replaced the cooler with the Xenon one in it, and this was a weaker cooler. This is a nice heat-piped cooler made out of copper. And so now, this thing works great. And dashboard and all. I'm going to put the camera here, and as you can see, this 360 runs games just fine. No graphical glitches or anything. Had it on for maybe 10 minutes already. And as you can see, looks great. Not bad for a $20 pickup 360 and all. I mean, I'm playing this off the disc. Gonna do a few more things probably to this 360. What I'm probably gonna do is I'll definitely consider getting a hard drive that's bigger and doing the whole hard drive swap where you put you take the 360 drive enclosure, you take the drive out, you put a bigger drive in, and then you can use it to play you get 500 gigs without paying 500 gig hard drive prices. Good thing. Feels a little rusty on this game. And then, yeah, it'll be a nice little replacement for my Falcon, which is it's a good 360. Don't get me wrong, but this is going to be putting out less heat and all, probably last longer. So, all in all, $25 for a Jasper that needed some fixes, and I got to redo the thermal paste on it too with some quality Arctic Formula 7. So I'm probably going Aztec Formula 7, not Arctic Formula 7. So yeah, I'm gonna like take this game out and probably put some more demanding game in the 360 and come back to it. It'll probably hold up pretty well too. So yeah, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.